had already been courting the generals directly, telling an audience in 1929 that the army's future lay with parties who defend its interests, not with a democracy that stipulates the dissolution of all that which is the basis of the existence of an army. When 3 young Reichswehr lieutenants were put on trial for treason in 1930, after trying to recruit fellow officers to a pro-Nazi mutiny, Hitler testified for the defense and used the witness stand, as he had used during his own trial for the coup, to promise the officer corps he had no intention of replacing the army, only of expanding it. Asked by the presiding judge whether his revolution would come by constitutional means, Hitler answered simply, yes. On that particular promise to expand the army, despite the restrictions imposed by the Treaty of Versailles, industrialists like Fritz Thyssen and bankers like Hjalmar Schacht were already betting he might be telling the truth, and their money started flowing accordingly. That first, humiliating meeting with Hindenburg in October 1931 was followed by a second lesson in how carefully Hitler had to manage his own allies. He travelled straight from the Chancellery to join the old guard conservative opposition of Alfred Hugenberg's nationalists, the veterans' militia known as the Stahlhelm, and a group of retired imperial generals at a mass demonstration meant to present a unified national opposition against both the government and Prussia's Social Democrats. Hitler showed up, spoke, and left early, before the Stahlhelm's own parade even finished, visibly contemptuous of what he privately regarded as relics on a past time who still thought history belonged to them. He needed their money and their respectability for the moment. He had absolutely no intention of taking orders from them, or of letting his movement be swallowed into their coalition. Within days of this demonstration, the so-called Harzburg Front had collapsed into the same infighting it was supposed to overcome. Hitler's strategy of alliance-making in this period made him the ultimate victim of this collapse because he used every faction that can hand him money or legitimacy, but never actually merged with any of them. By February 1932, Hitler faced a problem that could not be overcome by just political strategy, however. He wasn't a German citizen, and Germany's constitution didn't let foreigners run for president. The party's fix for this was, on February 25th, the Nazi interior minister of the tiny state of Brunswick appointed Hitler an attaché of Brunswick's legation in Berlin. This was a nothing job, of course, but it automatically, under German law, made him a citizen of Brunswick and therefore of the Reich. The new election race in 1932 was Hitler against the 84-year-old Hindenburg, and that produced Hitler's first real national campaign. Chartering an airplane to hit 3 or 4 cities a day, a tactic unprecedented in German electioneering, and plastering the country with 1 million posters and using sound trucks and gramophone records to reach crowds. But he still lost both rounds. Hindenburg took the runoff with 53% to Hitler's 37%. It was, on its face, a decisive rejection of the extremes by the German electorate, and it should have been the end of the story. The ban should have crippled the party. It didn't last 90 days, however, because General Kurt von Schleicher, the army's most important political operator, who'd engineered Brüning's own rise to the chancellorship in the first place, and now decided Brüning and his own patron, Defense Minister Wilhelm Groener, had both outlived their usefulness. Schleicher worked behind the scenes to undermine the SA ban he'd initially approved and spread a smear campaign against Groener, suggesting he was senile and pro-Marxist, and also reopened secret contact with both Rome and Hitler. Within a month, Groener was humiliated on the Reichstag floor and forced to resign. 3 weeks after that, Hindenburg dismissed Brüning too, and on Schleicher's engineering, replaced him with a compliant aristocrat named Franz von Papen. Papen, who now owed his job entirely to Schleicher's first act in office, was to lift the ban on the SA entirely. Political killings in the streets of Prussia spiked immediately, 82 dead in 3 weeks in June alone. On July 20th, 1932, using the excuse of a riot in a Hamburg suburb, Papen invoked Article 48 to depose the elected Social Democratic government of Prussia, by far the largest German state, and the last one still run by people genuinely interested in democracy, and appointed himself Reich Commissioner in its place. No mass uprising followed. The Prussian Social Democrats had their own police force and could plausibly have resisted, but chose not to risk a general strike. Hitler could of course tell by this that there was no longer any organized force in Germany prepared to physically defend democracy. The July 1932 election that followed handed the Nazis their all-time electoral peak, 37% of the vote, 230 seats, comfortably the largest party in the Reichstag, but still nowhere near a majority. Hitler met with Schleicher days later and demanded the full chancellorship, plus a slate of key ministries along with an enabling act to let him rule by decree. He had assumed Schleicher was on his side and agreed because of his favorable stance towards the Nazis. But Schleicher turned him down. 3 months later, in the November 1932, another election happened and the Nazi vote actually fell. They lost 2 million votes and 34 seats. The industrialists panicked and started withdrawing the financing of the Nazis. With money drying up, even Goebbels was writing in his diary about the party's chronic debt situation. And while we refrain from giving too much political commentary on this channel, it is worth pointing out that Hitler became Chancellor about 10 weeks from this point. He was far from unstoppable popular momentum. He was losing, but what happens next that brings him to power is a lesson on how democracy should not sleepwalk into fascism. With Papen's government collapsing under a no-confidence vote and the Nazis visibly declining, Schleicher made his own bid, convincing Hindenburg he could split the Nazi movement by peeling off Gregor Strasser, still the second most powerful man in the party, with an offer of the vice-chancellorship. And it came close to working. Strasser was firstly opposed to Hitler because he was one of the last leading remnants of the socialism ideals. The party was founded on, and Hitler no longer pretended to choose a certain specific side of the economic model debate. He would say and align with whoever and whatever principle to appeal to the masses. Strasser was also convinced Hitler's all-or-nothing strategy had run the party into a dead end, confronted Hitler directly on December 7th in a shouting match at the Kaiserhof Hotel. He went back to his room and wrote out his resignation from every post he held in the party. Goebbels' diary records the panic that followed. The letter landed like a bombshell. Hitler paced his hotel room for hours, then stopped and said that if the party fell apart, he would end it all with a pistol shot in 3 minutes. But that didn't happen because Strasser simply gave up and left for a vacation in Italy instead of following up with organizing the party split. Hitler seized the party